Hey guys, Luke here with Holistic Survival School. Hey, today I'm going to do a quick demo of some hand drilling. What is hand drilling? Well, hand drilling is rubbing two sticks together really fast and making some fire. What we have today for our spindle, I'm going to be using this piece of mullein that I harvested earlier today. If you haven't checked out that video yet, check that out. We'll talk a little bit about mullein, some other uses for it. And we have our fireboard or our hearth board. That's kind of the beauty of hand drilling. Unlike bow drilling, where you have four moving parts, there's a lot of kind of technicality and science you need to get into all those moving parts, make sure everything's moving correctly. The beauty of hand drill is you got two moving parts. So it doesn't take a lot of brains to figure out how to make it work, well, more than you think. But so it's easier mentally, but a lot harder physically at times, depending on what materials you're using. So to get our spindle ready for hand drilling, when we harvest it, we kind of take a general look at it, figuring out how thick do I want my spindle around. Do I want it really skinny? Do I want it really big? Ideally, what I look for is about pinky thickness. If it's too small, it'll drill through your board too quickly and it won't have time to create a coal. It won't have time to heat up. So right about here is where I'm going to cut it. That's about pinky thickness for me. Right about there, I'm going to make a quick cut with the saw and we'll go from there. So what I'm doing with the mullein here is I'm just cutting I'm kind of scoring the edge all around, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to preserve that outer edge of the mullein, because that's the harder part. If we go inside of this mullein, just through the outer bark, we're going to find that it's very pithy inside. And by pithy I mean it's very, very soft. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for pithy stalks, pithy plants. And so by pithy I mean it's soft on the inside, hard on the outside. The softness inside indicates that it's a fast-growing stalk, and usually the fast-growing stalks like yucca, like mullein, they often have a low combustion temperature, so that means it's easier to make fire with it. But the longer the spindle, the easier it's going to be for you. So if you're just beginning, try to find a nice, long, really straight piece. So before we use the spindle, we want to smooth it out a little bit. Sometimes spindles, especially the mullein, can have little rough spots, little bumps. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to go with my knife and just very carefully just take off some of those rough spots. See that there? That'll be hard on your hands. So I can just take that off, make it nice and smooth. That'll be a lot easier on your hands. My only other piece is the fireboard, like I said. This here is cottonwood. It was a piece that was drying up in the canyon. I was kind of just splitting the log itself and this kind of chunk came off. You can tell it's pretty thin. It's probably only about a ½ inch thick. That's kind of ideal for your hand drill. You don't want it too thick, and it's flat on both sides. Ideally, we want it to be dry too. The drier the better, the easier it is to make fire with it. So this cottonwood board is going to be a great combination with my mullein spindle to get us a coal. We want to get a nice hole in our fireboard so that the spindle has a little basin to spin in. So ideally what we want is about 1/4 inch in from the edge of the board. We want to start our hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my knife here and just create a little hole, a little basin for the spindle to be able to spin in. So I can do a little straight up and down at the start, but then after that I'm kind of trying to get as wide as I can. I'm making a big hole all around, not going too deep in, just enough for this spindle not to spin anywhere else. It's going to stay in this little basin, this little cup that I'm making for it. I try to get in all directions, and obviously I want it wide enough so that the spindle's going to fit in it. Alright, so we got the hole made. So now hopefully my spindle will fit right in the hole and I can start digging a little bit deeper. So this is the part where we call drilling. I'm not going for a coal yet, I'm not going for a fire. I'm just getting this hole deeper, okay? So you see how my spindle's not moving out of the hole? One more go. So what we've done here is I've dug a little bit deeper, and what that means is now my spindle sets a little bit farther into the hole, so it's less likely to spin out. It's going to stay in this hole. Now you can tell all the friction and the heat has created all this soft kind of powdery brown stuff here, and that's what we call punk. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a trench, which is going to be a pizza pie shaped hole. It's going to go 1/3 of the way into this hole. And what that's going to allow is all this punk, instead of falling around the outside, is going to fall into one very specific spot. And all that heat that is inside each little bit of this punk, all that heat's going to build up and it's going to combine to one spot, and eventually it's going to get hot enough and it's going to combust and create a coal. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go little chunk by little chunk, just back and forth. And I like doing it with the knife. It's a little bit slower than maybe using a saw. But what happens is I'm a little bit more in control. Because if I make this pizza pie shaped hole, this cut a little bit too deep into the hole, it kind of ruins it and I'll have to start all over again. And it is sort of an art. So what we're doing here is we want to make the punk all come into one spot. We want it all to line up right here. It's all going to follow the hole and it's all going to land here. But the problem is sometimes people make their trenches too skinny. What that does is it doesn't allow oxygen to flow in. And obviously fire needs oxygen, combustion needs oxygen. So we need to make our trench wide enough that it's getting oxygen, but not too wide that it's not still in a concentrated area. So we've created the trench here with that triangle shaped hole that goes 1/3 of the way into our circle. And so you can see that we want the punk to fall into one spot, but we don't want to restrict airflow to this area. So all the punk's going to come right down in here, and we want the air to be moving around here. So before I go for a coal with my hand drill, I want to make sure that I have a nest handy. So earlier I made this bird's nest with some juniper bark. If you can check out that video, I have a tutorial on how to make that bird's nest. So this is what we'll put our coal in once we get a coal. Alright, so I've got my hole made. I've got a trench in my hole to collect the punk. When that punk falls down in that hole, I'm going to just put a piece of bark underneath it to collect all that punk in one area so it doesn't just go into the ground. Got my bird's nest ready, so if I do get a coal, I can blow it into flames. Now I'm ready to hand drill. So basically the general technique is I want to use long strokes, so I want to use my whole hand, okay, if I can. What I do is I like to focus my energy a lot on the edge of my hand here. I'm going to push down as I spin it. And obviously the faster I spin it, the hotter it's going to get, but I don't want to worry about speed. It's nice and easy. So I'll kind of just start with, I'm pushing down. You can see my hands are staying in one spot. I'm kind of pushing down, but not too hard. I'm just kind of getting it warmed up. We got to get this spindle pretty hot, so I'm going to let it warm up first. Once I see a little bit of smoke, I'll start going a little bit faster, and I can start pushing down a little bit more. And it's catching my hair, but I'm going to keep going. And my punk is smoking. That's a good sign. I'm going to go one more. Alright, now after I get my hair out, looks like I have a coal because my punk is still smoking. So I'm going to slowly remove. All this punk that I've created here, I'm going to let it build up. So this hot part, the coal, is hot enough, and it's actually going to heat up the rest of this punk. I start with a little tiny coal, but it's going to build and make the whole pile of punk a coal. If I flap it with my fingers, give it a little oxygen, you can see how the darkest part, this is brown here, but it's going to spread and turn into black. It's going to turn into a coal, the whole thing. So now my coal's nice and built. I'm going to carefully and slowly lift this in, drop it in, make sure the whole thing gets in there. So that's actually turning into a fire already. I'm going to pinch. I'm going to lift. So the more I lift, the less smoke I get in my face. So I want to do long, slow breaths. The more smoke I see, it means more oxygen I can put in. There we go, we have flames. Now ideally with this bird's nest, I could let this burn and it's going to catch quickly, and we're in the desert, so I want to be careful with fire safety here, but see how the bigger stuff is catching now that the small stuff is caught easily? So I'm going to put this out before it gets out of control. If this is your first time hand drilling, don't expect to get fire right away. This is kind of an art, a skill that you're going to need to practice some. One of the biggest warnings I can give to you guys when you're practicing hand drilling is take care of your hands. Be aware of what you're feeling in your hands. I've seen a lot of people get some really, really nasty blood, blisters, just wreck up their hands because they're trying so hard. So just be aware of what it feels like. Give yourself a few days. Just get some practice in. When your hands start feeling tender, take a break. Wait a few days. That'll give you your body time to kind of take in kind of that motion of what makes a good hand drill. Hey guys, just wanted to recap real quick. I know a lot of people ask me, well, why do you do friction fire? Why do you hand drill? Why do you do that? It'd be very easy for us to come out in the wilderness and use lighters and gasoline all the time and create these big fires. But with hand drilling and friction fires, it's a way to challenge yourself, a way to push yourself. to conquer a skill, to master a skill. At the same time, when you're thinking along the lines of friction fire and looking around you, your awareness increases. You connect to nature. You notice the tree. You notice this plant, while other people might not. On another note, it's a connection to our ancestry. All of our ancestors, just not that long ago, really, in the big scheme of things, were doing friction fires for warmth and for cooking food, and that was life, was fire. And so for us, that's our birthright, this deep nature connection where we're relying on nature for our lives. That's within our genes. It's within us. And so to connect to that, to slow down and make fire the hard way, to master it, is really something that's really beautiful, and it's changed my life. And I encourage you guys to go out and give it a try. Post on the comments. If you got some questions, I'll try to help you out, and give some hand drilling a try. It's fun.